And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Welcome back to a new video. And today we're going to talk about all the rumors out there that McAlear, the CEO of Dodge, is out there doing interviews and hinting that a V8 is not out of the question. If there is a good business reason for it, it could happen. And I'm going to share with you the actual interview and what he said, as well as my belief on what needs to happen for that to happen. So yes, there is a lot of chatter all over Instagram, all over the internet that Matt McAlear has been out there doing interviews. He was on the Inevitable podcast, Inevitable with EV being the focus in the middle of Inevitable. If you get it. Anyways, go watch the channel. It's on the Motor Trend channel. I'll put a link in the description below, and you'll see the video right there. It's the Inevitable podcast, and two gentlemen ask Matt McAlear a litany of questions for quite a long time. It's a long video, but it's a great video. But only at the end did they say, and they did pepper in a little bit, but the end was telling. They asked straight up, is there any chance we'll see the 5.7 or the 6.2 supercharged engines come back out? And they were talking about the cars, the SRT products, the fun products, the ones that we're all hoping and anticipating and praying that happen in 2026. And here is what Matt McAlear said.
So back to we started with Trump. Yeah. With the new administration, any chance that the 5762 get further extended?
You know, it's something we're always looking at, and we'll. Is there an opportunity? Absolutely. We'll still have to be compliant as a company. So while V8s are no longer a bad word, and some of the compliance we haven't seen where it's going yet under the Trump administration. The nice thing is we don't have to balance that with just Dodge. We can balance that with the entire Stellantis portfolio of products.
Sure.
So it'll just come down to a business case, right? What cars make the most sense and make the most money to keep the big engines around the longest.
So most certainly he left it on the table open-ended. What we know about Dodge, and frankly every automaker, is they're never going to rule anything out. But one thing he did get into a little more in that video that I'm not going to play clips on, which was basically that they cannot build a car in anticipation or assuming that one administration will be in office 4 years from now or not, because things can completely change. So they need to be in compliance. They need a plan to be in compliance. And had they done what Ford did with the Mach-E years ago, they would have never had to cancel those V8s. Frankly, they sold a lot of them, but they didn't sell enough of them to where the EVs, if they sold hundreds of thousands of those things, wouldn't have made them compliant and allowed them to continue to sell those fun cars, along with all the other stuff that they had in their inventory for sale, which frankly allowed people to go in and buy a cheap car. And then somewhere along the line, they work their way up and they end up, like I did, climbing the ladder of the cars and leaving in a Hellcat. But it wasn't their primary business model, but it certainly made their company cool. So he addresses that in this next clip where he talks about, yes, now that they have the EVs in place, they can help ensure that they will be compliant regardless of what administration is in place in 4 years. Let me play that clip.
But if to keep them, because Stellantis had to pay a pretty hefty fine for being out of compliance, right? Would that have to continue or ramp up?
No, so with the new EVs that we're launching, so right now we're working to sell all those to offset. So now that we have the BEVs in the market, we still have 3 of the top 5 best-selling PHEVs in the country. So we still are able to
Jeep, right?
to meet our compliance. Yeah.
So I think based on that clip, we're all getting the hint here that they will be set up well if they sell lots of these EVs to be able to bring back a V8. But the reason why he's being hesitant, in my opinion, is they're not selling those EVs. They're not going over really well. And unless they sell lots and lots of those, and frankly, lots and lots of Hornets, which they have yet to have been able to do, it's going to be really hard to create or to have a good business justification to bring back these V8s. One, they won't be able to be in compliance because they're not selling enough of these cars to be able to be compliant if there's a new administration. So to go relaunching these V8s all over again in that Charger and all the money it would take to do that wouldn't make any sense unless they could be insured and guaranteed that regardless of what administration's in place in 4 years, that they will be able to be compliant. And I get it. We're all in this different world right now where we're hearing all this stuff's going away. It's all going to change. But as we're learning right now, things can change with a new administration, and car companies cannot hook their wagon to one administration and say that's how it's always going to be. Things could change later on, and now they're stuck having to pull everything back again, and that costs hundreds of millions of dollars. But if they can be successful with these EVs and the Hornets, then they can easily bring back a V8 and be compliant and be just fine. It wouldn't be that big of a deal then, because they would be able to keep it around for a very long time. So yes, he's right. There is a chance. If there's a business reason behind it driving it, then it would make sense. Well, I and all of you agree that there's a business reason, because that's the car we will buy. But in this next article, I'm going to show you from the drive, where he does say the same things he said on that interview, followed up by the very next interview the next day from the drive, that pretty much confirms everything I'm sharing with you, and I will elaborate on that in just 1 second. But let's go ahead and pop over to my other screen. All right, so here's the article everybody's talking about on Instagram, and it's frankly all over the place, where Matt was interviewed, and he shared, well, it's right here. It says, let's talk about the elephant in the room. While the Hemi may be dying, it's not actually dead yet. Dodge is still building the Durango RT and SRT and Hellcat variants for the 2025 model year. Just how long should we expect that to continue? I'm going to guess that's going to keep on going. Now with this new administration in and the EVs in their inventory, if those sell, they're going to keep kicking these things out for as long as they can. I would bet you anything. It's the same thing Ford CEO is doing, and I think Matt and frankly everybody at Stellantis would like, at this point, would like to be able to stand up and say, we're not getting rid of them. We're going to keep them until we can't keep them any longer, because they're selling so many EVs that they can be compliant regardless of administration in place. So he comes down with just how long should we expect that to continue? We haven't disclosed that yet, and here's why. Well, because the bottom line is they need to be compliant, and that's where he says here. But then the very next day, this article comes out, and these guys say the business case for Dodge V8s is weak, believe it or not. The thing is I will tell you, it's weak unless they get their act together. And here's the paragraph that matters. I use so many words in this. If you look back at cars, Chrysler's street racing technology division had its hand in between 92 and today, you'll be greeted by a list that is short on large displacement power. While the Viper's prestige may have carried Chrysler's reputation, most of the automaker's fun cars were based on far more pedestrian offerings. That's important. Neons, Calibers, Crossfires, which, like the Viper, featured lightweight aluminum engines, but V8s, those are relegated to trucks and SUVs, and apart from a few sporty nods, 5.9 RT anybody, they were really on the fun car radar, at least until 2005, the first model year of the then newly revived Charger that we all love. We're not telling everyone to fall out of love, but then he goes on to say, well, there's still plenty of V8s sitting on dealer lots right now. Says, may sound dismissive, but they're sitting there rotting on dealer lots right now. Don't believe us? Go look. That's the drive speaking, not Matt. He wouldn't say something like that, but they are definitely, and we all know that. We talk about that all the time. Don't believe it? Go look on the last calls, or sitting around with no markups. Thing is while they don't have markups, they don't have incentives. And what he's not acknowledging is that all those cars that are sitting there rotting, not selling, are way overpriced. They are way higher. They're higher than they were the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. And they got to a place to where a regular Hellcat is, a wide body Hellcat is reaching close to $90,000, and the dealers think they've got gold bullion, and they're not willing to let them go. So when he says here is these things aren't selling, they're sitting around, no markups, and no buyers. If the demand is strong as the internet claims, surely the monsters would be spoken for by now. So let me jump back here. So let me explain what he's saying. He's saying, well, you guys aren't buying the V8s that are left over on the lots. So, and frankly, there's demons still sitting around the lots. You aren't buying those. So why would we go make V8s now that you wouldn't buy? Well, they're not thinking. The reason they're not selling is the dealers screwed up that experience. They chased us all away with markups, and the manufacturer chased us all away with ridiculously high MSRPs. And it feels like McAlear didn't want to acknowledge that. And I think he should. Even the Jeep CEO acknowledged that the Grand Wagoneer was way overpriced. And I think this is time for Matt McAlear, not that he's ever going to see my video, to step up and say, yeah, the Charger's way overpriced. That's all we have to give them away right now, the EV. And frankly, all those V8s are sitting on the lots at $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, and they've got $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in add-ons and nitrogen, air, and crap, and all that stuff. And the dealers are making it downright, impossible to make a deal because they think they've got freaking gold on their lots. That's why they're not selling. But the reality of it is if they were priced right, they would sell. But they're not priced right. The price has been ratcheted up so much. And at this point, we're all in a place saying, there's a new Charger out, put a V8 in that and we'll buy it. Most of us, like speaking for myself, I have a Challenger. I have a 2023. So why would I go buy another 2023? And frankly, if you have a 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015, 2021, 22, they all look exactly the same. So that's why they're languishing. They needed to come out with a new model. It's not that there's not a demand for the V8s. It's one, that they're overpriced, and two, that there's a new model year out that definitely looks different. And we want, frankly, some of you are going to say you don't, but we want the new thing or a new thing with a V8 in it. And they will sell the daylights out of it. Think of it. Even Mustang had to come out with the Dark Horse and then hold them hostage from everybody and then have a horrible year selling cars. And that was probably dealers playing games. But it wasn't any significantly different than the other Mustangs. If you see a Dark Horse coming down the street, unless you get up close to it, it looks exactly like the other ones. They needed to come out with something extremely and wildly different. And frankly, Dodge succeeded in doing that with the Charger Daytona, but now they're going to come out with the 6-pack, and that's going to have trouble selling too. But let me tell you what he said in that article, and I'll end this video, is the bottom line: if Dodge does not bring out cheap, fuel-efficient cars for the masses, like they had the SXTs and the GTs and those Neons and all the cars of the past, if they don't start pumping out cheap cars that sell like hotcakes, that sell like crazy, that will help them become compliant and ensure long-term compliance, then they have no chance. If they keep rolling out super expensive EVs, they won't sell enough of them to get compliant, in which case they won't be able to have a business case to bring back that V8. So right now, I would say there's slight hesitance in their optimism, in Matt's optimism. And if these EVs were to sell like crazy, it would be a no-brainer. It would be easy for them to pop a V8 in something. But if they don't, which they are not right now, they have a long road to be able to be confident enough to be compliant regardless of the administration in place and be able to go on into the future with those V8s like Ford is doing. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I think the V8s will come. I just think they're going to have to get some cheap cars. They're going to have to get them on the lots and get them selling. And the answer is not going to lie in the Hornets and not going to lie in the Wagoneer S, and probably not going to lie in the for sure not going to lie in the Daytona EV. But if they make them cheap enough and sell enough of them, maybe they can bring them back. But that wouldn't save the company because they don't make as much money on those as they do selling mass amounts of cheap cars that are reliable and affordable that people want. See Lee Iacocca.
The new Chrysler Corporation introduces the K-Cars, the American way to beat the pump. K-Cars. Aries K from Dodge, Reliant K from Plymouth. 6 all-new fuel-efficient front-wheel drive, quality-built cars and wagons.
All they got to do is go read his book, go back and watch his old videos. They're all on YouTube, and read his playbook and do the same exact thing, and then they will fall into compliance regardless of administration and be able to bring us all the V8s. So will we see them by 2026? I'm going to say maybe. Maybe. It depends on how these EVs sell and how that 6-pack sells, and if Hornets ever sell. They're going to bring that GLH out, hoping that thing sells. These are all more fuel-efficient cars that can help them feel more comfortable with being compliant if they were to bring back the V8s. So maybe 2026, but if they can't sell this other stuff, they were probably looking at 2027, but I'll bet you anything. They're all sitting in a room right now saying, oh my gosh, what do we got to do to be able to bring this thing back? And if they get any inkling that they will be able to be compliant, I think they'll launch those things. But only time will tell. With that, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.